G'day guys, Tills20 here and welcome back to Marble Mountain. Today's episode's full of announcements, so I thought we'd kick things off with a live play so I can talk about them in greater detail, and then we'll be getting into the build around the 10-minute mark. So announcement number 1, the save game is now up on the Steam Workshop, so if you want to download Marble Mountain and build and explore, then you can totally go and do that. Link in the description. It's save game number 3. This is a year's worth of work on Marble Mountain. Yep, that's right. Marble Mountain is a year old. So have a good explore and let me know what you think. There are 2 collections to choose from. One has all the mods and assets that I use, and the other one has some less. So basically a light version and a more modded version. So you can choose which one is best for your computer. Don't expect a great frame rate in the city or when looking at the city like this. Going into the city, it's much better, like when you go into closer to the ground, and then out in the outskirts, it's totally fine. When you do download the save game and load it up for the first time, you'll get some flooding around here. That's totally normal. I don't know how to fix that. If you do know how to fix that, then let me know. Announcement number 2, I'm going to leave the city because the frame rate is much better in Copper Falls. So announcement number 2. What I wanted to do was I want to create some custom billboards for Marble Mountain. We've done this in previous series of mine and it's been so much fun, and I think doing it for Marble Mountain would be amazing because I think it really lends itself really well to something like this. If this is the first time you heard about something like this, let me give it a lowdown. And I'll use some of my previous billboards as a reference. So what we're looking at here are some custom billboards created by a asset creator called That Evan, and he's going to do the same for Marble Mountain. What I need from you guys are the images that go onto these billboards. Once That Evan creates them into assets, I will then place them down in Marble Mountain. So what we're looking at here are some custom billboards for Springwood, which is a series based in the 80s, and we got these 80s style billboards for the series. So the Bisqueakle Flux Toaster, only Tills20, great reference to YouTubers. This is a cigarette ad for Asarian cigarettes, which is this series that I was doing. Again, really cool. This is like this cult that was in Springwood, so someone actually created this whole billboard behind it. It was really cool. This is reference to Strict Toasters series, and we have references to the airport and the types of transport within Springwood. All these billboards, all these images are references to different parts of the city, so that when I fly past them or when I do cinematics, people will be able to say, hey, that's a billboard advertised in the monorail or the airport, or even the types of houses that are in Springwood. I think that we could do something very similar in Marble Mountain, but even better, because Marble Mountain actually has this whole deep backstory already, and it's only going to get better. And let me give you some ideas. So for instance, we have this whole wiki page, and people have been editing this wiki page and adding to it as we've been building over the last year. This is Transgrain. This is a company that sits outside of Copper Falls, and there's this whole backstory behind it, and here's the image of Transgrain, and you can actually fly over to Transgrain, which is over here. And whoever created that backstory on the wiki page could totally just upload this and send it to me, and then that everyone turn it into a billboard, and I'll place it on the side of the business. How cool is that? I'm going to ask that Evan if we can get some billboards without these pillars so that we can just stick them straight onto the sides. But even this person could create a billboard advertising maybe the bread that is created, or like a bakery or something like that. And then we can place them along the highway leading into Copper Falls. I also think that maybe we need to advertise something like this campground. What was the name of this campground again? Oh yeah, the Copper River Delta Campground. So maybe we need to have a billboard somewhere in Copper Falls advertising this. Or maybe it's saying, maybe you should come and stay here, or thank you for staying with us. Maybe there needs to be a billboard advertising this new housing development. Do you see where we're going with this? I think we can create such a rich story and, backstory behind all the builds within Marble Mountain. And also, if you want to create your own story, then totally go for it. If you want to claim this, I don't think anyone's claimed this, Basically, the best way to claim anything in Marble Mountain is you can add it to the wiki page. It's super simple. It's really, really easy. If you say, hey, I've owned this business here, I mean, you could always download the save game, take a screenshot, bam, and then upload it to the wiki, and then this company is yours. And then you can create whatever backstory you want, or you can just leave it, or maybe you just create a billboard advertising this. Maybe this is a vineyard, maybe this is an apple cider place, who knows? But that's totally up to you guys. I think this will be so much fun because there's already so much going on in Marble Mountain and there's so much room for extra development. And whatever you guys put on those billboards, I'm more than happy to do. So if you want to turn this into a business, that's if it's not claimed on the wiki already, then you can totally do that. Or maybe you want to claim one of the big buildings within the downtown of Montana. Maybe this is your bank. Maybe you're the CEO of this bank. Then do it. You can totally do it. It's so easy to create these billboards because it's really just an image, and you can always edit something that's already online, and you can ask questions. There's a whole Discord. I've left a link in the description that will lead you to the Discord that is where people are creating all these backstories and uploading the images for it. I'm going to leave this open for a while, so you've got a while to create your own stories, and I will talk a bit more about it in future. But I mean, this is sort of the whole point of Marble Mountain, is just create this whole rich story behind this whole interconnected region. Like maybe this place needs a billboard. I'm sure this has a backstory on the wiki already. Or even maybe this power station. That definitely deserves something. Look, there's so much going on here. And with the save game now up on the workshop, you guys can download it and fly around. And if you see something you like, then claim it. It doesn't have to be on the wiki. All it can be is just a billboard. It's totally up to you. And if you have any questions, then just hit me up and I'm more than happy to help you out and lead you in the right direction. There's also a whole bunch of other people on the wiki, so on the Discord server, that can help you out. But I'm very excited for this. And for announcement number 3, I've downloaded some extra assets for Marble Mountain. I put it to you guys a couple of weeks ago if you were okay if I download some extras, and everybody was totally cool with it, so that's good news for me. I'm going to use some of them in today's episode, and I'll talk a bit about that in the build, which I'm going to get into now because I've talked for too long in this live play. Let's get into the build. Alright, sorry for such a long-winded explanation. That probably took a lot longer than I needed to make it out to be. I had a lot of information to give, and I thought a live play was going to be the best format for that, but I don't know if it really was. Anyway, I'll talk a little bit more about the things I spoke about in that live play during the time lapse. But for now, what we're going to be building today is pretty much just working on the detail work for this interchange. Now, I want you to stretch your mind back to this time last year, because that is probably when I was building this interchange. That's how old it is, and that's how long it's been sitting in Montana, undetailed and looking fairly unrealistic and very plain and bad. So I thought today, now that we've got some extra assets to play with, let's detail this bad boy up. Now, actually I say that, but I don't really use too many new assets on this, mainly using some different types of trees. So I've ended up downloading about 3 or 4 different types of trees, just some extra ones. I think it's going to add a lot more to the series. Actually, I know it's going to add a lot more because I was really limited with the types of trees that I had. I think it's always a good practice to try and stick with, just like a very particular type of trees or a palette of colors when it comes to trees, but it's also really important to sort of stretch out a little bit too and make sure there's a little bit of variety. And you'll notice in this that I do place down a whole bunch of different types of trees that are new to the series, which is really nice to play with. I think it just adds a lot more color and really just changes the palette a little bit, because before we had a lot of the same tones, and I just think that it wasn't really that realistic having the types of colors that we had before. I've actually downloaded a flower, a Mr. Mason flower, which is I'm pretty sure it's common around California, which is a sort of style we're going for, the environment we're going for, and I just thought that might be like a cool wildflower to have just popping up from time to time in different areas. I put a fair few around this highway and around the interchange. I plan to just do like little pockets of it here and there and try and keep it in more of a wild environment. Also grabbed, I think, the London birch tree, and there's a couple of other ones that I've grabbed, but I'm really trying to limit myself still. I don't want to go overboard and turn this into a detailed series. The point of this is to try and keep things somewhat simplistic, also trying to create a bit of realism, but the main goal is to expand out, have a big, vibrant, connected community of different towns and industry and places around Marble Mountain, and that's not possible if I'm just going to detail every inch of the map, which what I'm doing right now is detailing it pretty hardcore. But I just really like that about Marble Mountain. I like just being able to, be a bit more restricted with what I have to build with. But I guess the really nice thing about knowing that you guys are happy with me downloading a couple of extra ones, it just means that I don't have to get so stuck with builds, and I don't have to, I'm not restricted to, certain types of assets. I'm allowed to branch out and grab some extra ones here and there, which is really good. Means that we can actually see some extra things in Marble Mountain, which I think is a real positive. So, in terms of detailing the interchange, I wanted to keep things quite wild. I really wanted to make all the bushes and the landscape around here to look like it was built as if the interchange was built around the wildlife, if that makes sense, rather than the whole thing being cleared and then they build some sort of nice manicured garden with rows of trees and flowers and sculptures. Instead, I wanted to make it very wild and show that there's been a little bit of planning around this sort of environment. And I also thought it'd be a cool spot for a bit of a mound or somewhat of a little hill. And it just so happens to work out a bit easier or more manageable to create if I ended up dragging this path around it. So there's a bit of a spiral of the path, and it made it really easy for me to then terraform the land in a particular way. And then just plop down a couple of different trees in random locations, and we've got some big boulders, which they're probably a bit overkill, but I don't really care. I think they are a nice touch. It just shows that there's a fair bit of rock work underneath all the way around this mountainside. We are talking about Marble Mountain. There is a fair bit of mountainous environment around here, and a lot of the rocks are exposed, so you can imagine that this is an area that has a lot of exposed rock. And I think the real game changer for this area, the thing that really made it pop, and when I placed it down, I was like, yeah, that really worked. These fences. So I've actually intentionally made it so there's no curves on these fences, and I've done that because wood doesn't really curve in the same sense as like we drag fences in City Skylines. So I thought I'd just keep it in this like straight angled look, and it worked a lot better. And it's a little bit more tricky to sort of get around this this footpath, but I think the effect is much more natural, and it does look a little bit odd in some areas, but again, I just think that it just looks more natural, and that's what I was going for. And I also really like the different areas that I have just set up for people to sit and just chill out. There's a couple of benches around, and you'll also notice that there's a footpath that goes up to the top of the mountain. You'll see some good shots from there in the cinematics at the end. There's just some really nice little spots, and it's not finished. I ended up just dragging a footpath just towards the road so that people can actually access it, but this whole area is still under development. There's a lot more that I want to still build around here, and I just pretty much wanted to detail where the interchange was and then move on. Mainly because I've started doing some filming for some driving videos, and I want to do a lot more because they're a lot of fun to record. Basically, so if this is the first time you've been hearing about this, I want to record some videos of like driving around Marble Mountain, from first person shots and just some really cool looking cinematics, because there are some really lovely roads around here. They just need to be a little bit more detailed, and some areas are really well detailed and some areas have got a lot of atmosphere, but then some areas like the area that I'm detailing right now, just have been left for a little while. So I thought this would be a nice opportunity to fill and finish off this whole highway, and not trying to go too overboard with the types of foliage and the types of detail work I'm doing here. Just mostly just trying to tidy things up, add a couple of fences, add some power lines, and that would be pretty much it. And there's also a little bit of a dispersed type of neighborhood too, which you'll see me just sort of tighten up a little bit more. But yeah, I have just started recording some of those videos. They are looking really cool, and I've been using some of the audio, some of the commentary that you guys have been sending in for the radio stations. They're just really cool. If you ever want to send me any more, then feel free to do so, because I could never have enough. But yeah, you'll see that in the next couple of weeks, so look forward to that. I'm also working around the rail line, which is stretching along the highway. I really love this rail line, and I'm pretty keen to do some first-person shots along this line too. I put it to you guys a couple of weeks ago whether this should be purely for freight coming in and out of Marble Mountain, or whether it should be for multi-purpose passenger and freight. At the moment, there's both going through, and I think that's fine, but I'm not sure how realistic that is. I might need to add an extra line, says 3 or 4 going past, or maybe like a bypass line or something along those lines. Good choice of words. But there's something really cool about a train line that follows a highway or follows a road. When you do end up seeing that train going by, you just think, oh, I wonder what sort of journey that train's been on, or I wonder where it's come from or where it's heading to. And I think you're going to have the same sort of feeling when you see some of those driving videos or those first-person videos down the track, because yeah, there's just like a real expanse of different places in Marble Mountain that you're really going to notice that. And you can actually see me working on some more roads. Again, we're going to be doing driving videos all the way around Marble Mountain. They'll be from one suburb to another. They'll be from one town to another. It's going to be really cool to see the different routes that people can take to get around this place. So I just wanted to set up as well some other road connections and some areas where some future developments going to go. So that road that snakes up into the mountainside, that'll end up having some sort of small little neighborhood up there, more over where the ridge is, and there's some rapids too that plan to do some type of smaller village up in that sort of area. And down around here, I thought I didn't want to go too crazy with plopping things down. Really just trying to keep it simple and basic. So I decided to put down a bit of industry, and I just thought that would be a good idea around the highway. And again, not really going for too much detail, just sort of plopping it down, adding a little bit of textures and placing down some trees and calling it a day. That's about it. And that's sort of the essence of this series, is really just to, some areas obviously going to have a lot of detail, other areas we're just going to kind of keep it somewhat just chilled, because otherwise it's just too impossible to get around to every single area and to finish off. I mean, we have been going for a year now, and this is how much we've managed to achieve. And I do hope you guys enjoy the save game and fly around and yeah, experience all of the things that we've been building over the last year. If you do enjoy it, then please do rate it up, because I would love to see it up on the front page of the Steam Workshop. I really don't think I've been there before. That would be really cool. And if you ever want the save game on a more regular basis, then it is shared with my patrons on a weekly basis, as with all my other series too, and it does help me out a lot. I'm actually pushing towards doing this semi full-time, if that makes sense. At the moment it's squeezed in between my work schedule, but I'm sort of planning on trying to maybe even take a day off work, and day off work quotation marks, and actually just work on the channel instead. That would be the ultimate dream, and if you want to see me get there, then yeah, Patreon's a place to go, because that is the only way I could ever possibly be able to justify taking a day off work to do the channel. And yeah, if I did actually manage to do that, then you'd probably be able to see 3 videos a week from me, which is insane, and I think it could be manageable. But as we wrap up this episode, I am just finishing up by placing down some smaller dispersed neighborhoods, just pockets of houses, and just covering up some imperfections with some trees, as per usual. But guys, I do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you have, then leaving some feedback in the comments section or by rating up the video does help me out a bunch. So thank you for doing that if you've done that, and thank you for doing that if you're about to. Oh god, I think I've got to figure out a better way of finishing up these episodes. Alright guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. See ya.